Sit back. Relax. Enjoy listening. The room falls quiet again. Only the faint hum of the studio remains. RK stares at the lyric pad, at the unfinished lines. Then, without meaning to, his thoughts begin drifting backward. Back to the beginning. Back to that interview. RK remembers sitting there watching SV for the first time. At the time all he saw was anger. Anger, disappointment, frustration. He remembers thinking she was impossible, arrogant, difficult. But now, looking back, that is not what stayed with him. What stayed was the way she was fighting for someone who could do absolutely nothing for her. Someone she didn't need. Someone who could never repay her. Even back then, before he knew anything about her, before he understood anything about her, he noticed that. Then his mind moves to the moment he grabbed her hand. The moment he stopped her. The moment their paths crossed properly for the first time. And somehow every memory after that starts connecting. RK remembers the fire. He remembers standing there surrounded by smoke and heat, feeling the flames closing in from every direction. He remembers reaching the point where he genuinely thought nobody was coming. Nobody could reach him. Nobody would reach him. And then she appeared. Out of everyone in the world, she was the one who ran into that fire. The one person he hated at the time. The last person he expected. She risked her own life to save his without stopping to think twice. Maybe something changed there. Maybe not completely. Maybe not enough for him to notice. But looking back now, he cannot deny that something shifted. Then he remembers the hospital. Her mother. The marriage. He remembers how simple the explanation felt back then. She saved my life. I owe her. That was all. That was the reason he gave himself. That was why he agreed. But if it was only repayment, then why does he remember getting angry when she refused to eat? Why does he remember waiting for her? Why does he remember how irritated he was when she walked away without saying anything? Why does he remember how frustrated he became when she kept acting like nothing mattered? Those are not the memories of someone paying back a debt. RK's grip loosens slightly around the pen. Then his thoughts move to the night she disappeared. Even now that memory feels different. He remembers searching for her the entire night. He remembers refusing to stop. Refusing to go home. Refusing to leave it to someone else. He remembers how every hour that passed felt worse than the one before it. He remembers the growing fear he kept refusing to call fear. Then he remembers finding her. Sitting alone in that room deep inside the jungle. No guards. No power. No control. Just SV. Terrified. Crying. RK remembers exactly what happened inside him when he saw her. His heart broke. Not because she looked weak. Not because she needed saving. Because for the first time he saw how much pain she carried behind everything else. He remembers wanting to get her out immediately. Wanting to take her away from that place. Away from the fear. Away from everything hurting her. Maybe something changed there too. Maybe that was the moment. But then the next morning came. She got angry again. Pushed him away again. And he buried that thought before it could go any further. Then another memory returns. The accusation. The lies. The endless noise. RK remembers how tired he was during that time. Tired of explaining himself. Tired of defending himself. Tired of watching people decide he was guilty before hearing a single word from him. He remembers reaching a point where he genuinely stopped caring what people believed. But somehow the thought of SV believing it was different. That thought stayed. That thought bothered him. He remembers wanting to explain everything to her. Not because she asked. Not because she demanded answers. She never did. But he wanted her to know anyway. And even now he cannot explain why. Then Golden Vibe returns. RK remembers standing backstage feeling like everything was collapsing around him. His dance partner was gone. The performance was falling apart. Reporters were everywhere. The accusation was everywhere. He remembers feeling like he couldn't breathe. Then he saw her. A mask covering her face. But not her eyes. And suddenly everything changed. Even now RK remembers how strange that felt. Nothing about his situation actually improved. The accusation was still there. The pressure was still there. The risk was still there. But somehow he could breathe again. He remembers stepping onto that stage. He remembers looking into her eyes. He remembers forgetting the crowd. Forgetting the cameras. forgetting the pressure, forgetting the world. For those few minutes there was only her. And that is the memory that hits him hardest. Because he remembers thinking something he never allowed himself to finish. This feels different. That was the moment. The first real moment. The moment he almost admitted something to himself. But the song ended. She left. The moment disappeared. And he buried that thought too. Then he remembers the case. He remembers winning the case at the very last moment. He remembers learning that someone powerful had intervened behind the scenes. And he remembers the happiness he felt when he realized it was her. And then he remembers the anger. The anger when she called it repayment. The anger when she turned it into another transaction. RK closes his eyes briefly. Because now that anger finally makes sense. It wasn't because she helped him. It wasn't because she repaid him. It was because he wanted it to mean something else. Because somewhere deep inside he wanted there to be another reason. Something she wasn't saying. Something she refused to admit. He remembers telling himself he was done. He remembers repeating it over and over until he almost believed it. Then he heard there was a fire in her building. And everything he had spent days convincing himself of fell apart in a single moment. RK remembers seeing her trapped inside that freezing chamber. He remembers how still she looked. He remembers how cold her skin felt. He remembers the fear that gripped him when he realized he might be too late. He remembers that moment with painful clarity. Because in that moment none of the anger mattered. None of the arguments mattered. None of the disappointment mattered. Nothing mattered except her. And then she woke up. RK remembers the first thing she did after learning what happened. After learning he was the one who pulled her out. After learning he was the one who refused to leave her there. She looked him in the eyes. And called it a transaction again. A repayment. Another debt to settle. RK's jaw tightens slightly at the memory even now. Because he remembers how angry he felt. Not normal anger. Not frustration. Something deeper. Something that stayed with him long after the conversation ended. At the time he told himself it was because she was being unreasonable. Because she was reducing everything to debts and repayments again. But now, sitting here and looking back, that explanation feels incomplete. Because if that was all it was, the anger should have passed. It should have disappeared the moment the conversation ended. But it didn't. It stayed. Followed him. And somehow it kept bothering him far longer than it should have. Then his thoughts moved to her mother. To the conversation that changed everything. RK remembers sitting there listening while her mother told him the truth. About her childhood. About everything she carried alone. About the years that shaped her into who she became. He remembers hearing how early she learned not to depend on anyone. How early she learned that trust came with a cost. How early she convinced herself that every kindness had a price attached to it. And suddenly things that never made sense before started making sense. Why she pushed people away. Why she hated being cared for. Why she turned every feeling into a transaction. Why she carried every burden herself even when it was destroying her. RK remembers the relief he felt hearing those things. And that memory bothers him now too. Because the relief should not have been that strong. Not if he was done. Not if he didn't care. Not if she had become just another person. But it felt like breathing again. Like finally finding the missing piece of a puzzle he had been staring at for months. Because suddenly he understood her. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough. Enough to see the reasons behind the walls she kept building around herself. Enough to understand why she fought every hand that tried to help her. Enough to understand why she kept turning everything into debts and repayments. And understanding those things mattered to him far more than it should have. His grip tightened slightly around the pen. Then yesterday returns. RK remembers seeing her shoulder shake from pain while she pretended she was fine. He remembers how irritated he felt watching it. Not because she was hurt. Because she was still acting like the pain didn't matter. Still acting like she could carry it alone. Still acting like she had to carry it alone. Then another memory follows immediately after it. Her hand gripping his shirt. Pretending for her mother. Pretending everything was normal. Pretending they were fine. And even now RK can remember exactly how tightly she held on. The memory lingers. And suddenly something begins connecting. Not one memory. Not two. All of them. The interview. The fire. The marriage. the jungle, the accusation, golden vibe, the case, the freezing chamber, her mother. Yesterday, every memory that stayed, every memory that hurt, every memory he keeps returning to, every memory he cannot let go of, has her in it. RK slowly lowers his eyes toward the lyric pad again, because he has spent months giving himself different explanations. Repayment, responsibility, gratitude, concern, one excuse after another, one explanation after another. But none of them explain why the thought of losing her felt unbearable. None of them explain why every time he tried to walk away, he ended up running back. None of them explain why her pain affected him more than his own. None of them explain why understanding her mattered so much. None of them explain why every memory that refuses to leave him somehow leads back to her. The realization settles slowly, heavy, unavoidable, and it lands harder than anything else. Because even after saying he was done, even after convincing himself he didn't care, even after trying to walk away more than once, he never stopped looking for her, never stopped worrying about her, never stopped trying to understand her. And for the first time all day, RK stops fighting that truth.